Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wishing Shed. Today we're going to be hand sewing these sweet little donkey dolls. So you cut out your felt sections and you don't need a seam allowance on any of these. You might think that the section for the mane and the hair for the tip of the tail looks a little bit strange, but by the time we've finished it will look more like hair. So we're going to start by attaching the muzzle area, or half attaching it for now. Position it on your donkey so the wrong side is facing down. You want to make sure there's a small excess of around 1mm just around the outside there. This is so when we sew our donkey together later you won't see any of the brown, it will just be the cream. I also like to make sure that they line up like that. Then we're going to applique stitch along this edge here onto the head. Next we're going to applique on the little eye patch. Then using a whole skein of black embroidery thread, you just want to do a little stitch through the head for the nostril. "3mm eyes, or you can sew on little seed beads, little black seed beads, but just for this donkey I'm going to simply sew a French knot for the eyes. And then we're going to start sewing at point A here and go all the way around, just covering the legs for now. Start your sewing, you pull the knot so that it's on the inside, so in between the two sections, and that hides the knot. But I'm also going to sew an extra knot just to ensure that doesn't unravel. Just to ensure that all my sewing doesn't unravel. And then we're going to sew a whip stitch now, just down and around the legs. Right, so at this point, once you get to around the legs, measure out the pipe cleaner lengths as indicated on the stencil for the legs. So you want to bend the ends over and then unpin, and then just pop the pipe cleaners down, right down into each leg. Make sure it goes right to the bottom. And we're going to continue sewing now up to point C here. Okay, once we get to point C, we're going to sign off, switch to our cream coloured thread, and we're going to start sewing around from point C to point D. And I'm just beginning my sewing in between the felt sections so I can hide that knot. And then carrying on with the whip stitch. And now where we have the excess cream felt, you just want to make sure that all lines up, and then that will cover the brown. Okay, now we're going to switch back to our brown thread for the final time, and we're going to sew to point E where we're going to put the first ear in. Because I want my donkey facing this way, so I'm going to have to switch the ears around, so the small ear is facing that way, like that, and then the larger ear. I like to add a little detail into the ear just by shading in a little bit of chalk pastel, or you can use a marker pen. Right, so I'm going to pop my smaller ear, and you want to put it down around 1/2 centimetre or so down, so it's really secure in the head, and the straight edge is on the inside. And then we sew straight through, going through the ear, going through the ear and back through to attach those securely. So we're going to attach the second ear now, so there's no gap really, tiniest little gap in between, and just make sure that they line up at the top where you want them to. Now let's continue sewing down to point F, leaving just over an inch or so gap there for stuffing. Then little bits at a time, push that stuffing in and use a thin tool to get it right down into the nose area. And then just stuff the rest of your donkey, so stuff down onto the top of the pipe cleaners on the legs. Okay, now let's continue our sewing, and we close that opening. And for the front legs, we just fold those, and then we're going to start sewing across the bottom here. So sew our knot in between, and sew around the hoof up to the top. We cut and fold the pipe cleaner sections just the same way as we did for the back legs in the body, and push that right down, and then just carry on your sewing to close the top. Now we're going to make the mane. So we have our mane section here. The thinner part is going to be the forelock. It's going to go just at the top of the donkey's head in between the ears, and we just want to make this look more like hair. So to do that, just take the tip of your needle and very carefully tease up all the way around the edge, tease the fibres out. So I forgot to mention I'm using this is pure wool felt fabric, but I also like using a wool blend, a wool viscose blend. That works really well as well. But this is actually 100% wool felt fabric. So we just tease that all the way around. Okay, now when we fold that in half like that, you see we have sort of a fuzzy looking little mane. Now you can either just add a little bit of fabric glue to that to glue it, but I'm going to sew a few simple stitches through. So sew the knot in and then just going up to diagonal all the way up. So going back in through our exit point at an angle up the mane, like so. Tiniest little stitch, working our way up. Okay, now we can attach the mane. So I like to have the top bit just poking through the ears there. And you can simply glue this on if you want to. I'm just going to sew the tiniest little stitch through and then through the base of the mane onto the head. Just a whip stitch through there. Okay. And then you just want to follow the line along the neck, the seam on the neck, and just sew a whip stitch going through the mane and the stitches on the neck. So try and go over your original stitches. And I like to attach the arms just at the line of the base of the mane there, and again just using a whip stitch across the top to attach those. Okay, we're going to fuzz up the tip of the tail now, the same way that we did for the mane. So we're going to leave the end here, not going to fuzz that up, we're just going to fuzz around the bottom of it. And do the other section as well. Going up through the centre at a diagonal, just to join. Take our tail section, we can just sew just a few stitches through to attach. Okay, and then we fold our tail, keep that little bit in there, and a few stitches again, and then we sew up the outer edge. I also like to fuzz up some of the fibre on top of the tail as well. Okay, now we just pin that where we want it on our little donkey's back. Again, using a whip stitch, we just attach the top of the tail. Then just pop the little bag of carrots over the shoulder, and if you want you can make the little bandana and then just tie that at the back. A bandana from a scrap of fabric or felt. There's our sweet little donkey dolls all finished. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please do feel free to share any photos and tag the Wishing Shed over on social media, because I'd love to see how your little donkeys turned out. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you back here soon.